Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. Yeah, Tennessee has been attacked again. No shock there.
Again.
And we need to talk about the Tennessee problem because, folks, I've been doing this a while, and I can tell you right now, it's getting ready to get worse. The articles that you're going to start seeing about Tennessee over the coming months, you're going to see a push, a hard push towards discrediting Tennessee on every level. Primarily about this House NCAA settlement, but for many other reasons as well. Now, I'm going to show you an article. This is going to be just kind of par for the course that you need to get ready for. And this is in the USA Today by Dan Walken, and this is an opinion piece. That's important to remember. Tennessee's attempt to undermine settlement is a red flag in new world of college sports. This article talks about Zakai Zeigler, who tried to get a fifth year. The writer here is not happy. His opinion is this is Tennessee's yet again attempt to undermine the NCAA, and that's pretty much his words. It said, but Zeigler's petition should set off major alarm bells for this new world of college sports, not because he filed it, which is his right as an American, but because Tennessee's athletic department seemed to support an idea that would spark the kind of chaos power conferences schools have spent months trying to fix. And he talks about Tennessee was willing to undermine a key component of the House settlement on behalf of its player it wanted back on its basketball team. Says it's especially stunning given that Monday of this week, SEC Commissioner Greg Schiano joined four of his colleagues on a call with the media to discuss a settlement finally going into practice. And what he's upset about is that a senior deputy filed an affidavit telling the judge that Zeigler would have a guaranteed spot on its 2025-26 basketball team, which would, of course, also mean a large NIL payment coming his way via the terms of the House settlement. So he's really ticked off about that and feels like Tennessee's trying to undermine everything. He says later in the article, we can already see that in Tennessee's support for Zeigler's case, which was a blatant attempt to blow up a long-standing NCAA rule that the vast majority of administrators support. He said, I reached out to Tennessee for clarification of its position Thursday morning, couple of hours before Zeigler's injunction was denied, and then after. And they said they're not going to comment on his case. It's because his case is still pending. It's not decided. He just didn't get the preliminary injunction. So, of course, they're not going to talk about it. So they would likely say, if they did comment, is that they had nothing to do with Zeigler's case, and they filed the affidavit simply out of loyalty and support for their former player. He says, fair enough. Of course, that's what they just said. But everyone needs to understand how big of a red flag this is already for the new world of college sports. So I looked through that article and I looked to see if there's anybody else in there that he's upset about wanting a fifth year for various reasons. I didn't see anything in there except Zeigler and Tennessee that he's very upset about. Now, as you know, Diego Pavia was granted an injunction allowing for added eligibility, so he got a fifth year. Diego had already used up his eligibility, but because he played in a junior college for a period of time, he sued over that and got an additional year, maybe two. I didn't see anything in that article of Dan being upset about that. Not a word. And you know, there's another guy that's currently going for a fifth year. Yeah, and that's a fellow by the name of Jet Elad from Rutgers. And he's going to get an additional year. And he had been at several different colleges. And let's see. Oh, Rutgers head coach Greg Schiano testified in Elad's case. Huh. So, boy, I'll bet he's mad at Greg Schiano, wouldn't you think? Because he's the head coach, and affidavit's one thing, but to actually personally go there and testify the head coach, man, I'll bet Walken's pissed. Jeez, I mean, that's really undermining the NCAA about eligibility, isn't it? But I didn't see anything in the story about that. You want to know why? Because Greg Schiano's not the head coach at Tennessee. And, boy, that really gets him upset, because that's when a lot of the hate towards Tennessee occurred, was not hiring Greg Schiano. And we saw that with Pat Forde. And we're going to talk about that.
Believe that.
But no mention of the other two players that went for a fifth year. But the fact that Tennessee did it, ooh, that's a real problem. That's going to destroy the NCAA. So what is this really about? Well, it's a couple different things. We'll talk about the Greg Schiano thing and all of that. That's part of it. The other part of it is Tennessee kicked the living crap out of the NCAA up in Greenville, Tennessee in federal court. And a lot of the national writers are not happy about that. Now, look, somebody was going to have to do it because what they were doing was breaking the law. They were basically stopping people from getting paid to play football, which had already been voted 9-0 in the Supreme Court. You can't do that in the Austin case. But because other teams weren't in a repeat offender situation, and we'll talk about that as well, but they just took it. Like Florida State, they went ahead and took the butt whooping, which was $500,000. Their offensive coordinator got a show cause, and what he got in trouble over was transporting a player to an NIL meeting. Just driving the kid to the meeting got that guy a $500,000 fine and a 1-year show cause. They were going after Miami. They were also going after Florida. What they went after Tennessee for was the plane ride from Nico Iamaleava from California to Tennessee. That's one of the ways they were going to try to hit people was transportation. Who paid for it? Well, the collective paid for Nico to come all that way. And they said, oh, we can nail him for that. And UT, or Tennessee, with Donde Plowman, Danny White, and all that, they got wind of what was happening. So they investigated it and said, look, we're playing by the rules. And look, this is the same school that investigated themselves over the Jeremy Pruitt situation, brought all the evidence to the NCAA over $64,000, the dumbest thing in the world. Out of $8 million that Jeremy Pruitt made over those 2 years, he paid $64,000 to some players through various ways. Some of it was cash in a Chick-fil-A bag. Dumbest thing in the world. Well, it cost him $12 million, and it put Tennessee under a cloud for 2 years. So Tennessee completely cooperated, exemplary cooperation, all that crap, 25 scholarships, $8 million fine, you name it, we got hit. But because we cooperated so well, we didn't get a postseason ban. Well, I guess that didn't suit the NCAA just quite well enough. They came back a year later over the Nico thing, and who did they go to over that was Pat Forde, and talked about the death penalty of all things, which is absurd. But because it was repeat offender and they put that word out, Tennessee said, okay, you want to go down that path? The Attorney General, Scrutiny, let them know, said, if you go down this path, you're going to regret it. They have not broken any rules. Don't do this. It's antitrust. Don't play this game.
Don't be a fool. We can do this easy, or we can do it real easy.
Well, NCAA did it, and Tennessee kicked the living crap out of the NCAA. And there's a lot of anger towards Tennessee on that as well. So you've got that. Then Tennessee not hiring Greg Schiano. And again, here comes back into the Pat Forde situation. And Pat wrote back in the day, Tennessee fans got their way. Now the chickens have fully come home to roost. And here he pretty much pointed and laughed at Tennessee over their not hiring Greg Schiano. It says, how successful was a vigilante charge to take back our program, resulting in the hiring or the non-hiring of Greg Schiano, basically. And then he asks, this is funny. He says, how does it feel nearly 5 years later to know that you greased the skids for what now definitely can be called the worst football hire in the 21st century? He said, go paint it on your rock. We blew it with Pruitt. He said, the final bill is coming due on a fan tantrum that led to the firing of John Curry, the hiring of Fulmer to replace him, and the subsequent decision to bring aboard Jeremy Pruitt as the football coach. He said, good job, good effort. You listen to a fanboy media grifter's bright ideas on how to run a football program. He said, you disrupted the attempted hire of Greg Schiano, trumping up a dishonest moral outrage. The real issue was whether Schiano could win in the SEC, not what he knew or didn't know about that whole Penn State thing. Now, I'm going to have to differ with some of this. There was a bunch of us that didn't want Greg Schiano, not because of anything to do with Penn State, but having to do with the fact that he was a butthole. And you don't believe me? Prior to being looked at by Tennessee, he had been in the NFL at the Buccaneers. And Buccaneers coach Greg Schiano, regarded as a bully around the NFL, said Schiano was almost universally viewed as unaccommodating, intimidating, and downright disrespectful by NFL representatives who paid visits to Rutgers over a 10-year span. And there were plenty of groans and eye rolls when he accepted the Bucs job last January. As one veteran NFL coach said of Schiano earlier this week, it's his way or blank you. He needs to back up a little bit or he's going to have a very hard time in this league over the long haul. The writer said, in conversations with nearly a dozen GMs, he said, I detected an almost unprecedented degree of resentment and disdain for a man who had yet to coach his third professional game. They believe his decision to instruct his defenders to blow up the Giants line and lunge at quarterback Eli Manning in a typically uncontested scenario was indicative of an unapologetic arrogance that made Rutgers a notoriously dreaded stop on most scouts' itineraries during his tenure. At Rutgers, it was a really unpleasant day. You were made to feel like an outsider, like you weren't welcome, and everyone was scared to talk to you. Schiano tried so hard to be a hard ass and went out of his way to be rude. When you passed him in the hallway, you might say, "Good morning," and he'd look at you like you're a blanking idiot. So look, that was my big issue with him. I remember when this all happened, I was like, he had a bad tenure at Tampa Bay. The players couldn't stand him. He wasn't a player's coach. I knew in the environment we were moving towards and already in, you had to be a player's coach. You couldn't be a bully, because these young 18, 19, 20-year-olds, you go in there and do that to them, they're gone. They don't have to put up with that crap anymore. This is not 1975, and I knew he would not work here. Plus, I'd heard him speak. He sounded like Butch Jones, but a mean Butch Jones. Imagine that. And what, he's at Rutgers? Why didn't anybody come and gotten him? If he's such a great coach, why didn't anybody come and swooped him up? So that's why I had a problem with him. It wasn't the Penn State thing. I just knew he wasn't going to work here. We were getting a mean Butch Jones. When you have numerous people telling you a guy's a bully, you might want to listen. But I didn't see any of that in that article by Pat Forde. Not a word. It was just what bullies we were here at Tennessee. So here's what it boils down to, folks. Tennessee has already made it clear this House settlement, they know it's not going to be able to stand up in court, and there's going to be dozens and dozens of lawsuits. And the reason they know that, well, just take, for example, the fact that they're immediately, as soon as the settlement's done, they're going to Congress for an antitrust exemption. Why would you do that if you don't already know what you're doing is against the law? They're going to go in there, and all these kids that have these NIL deals, Deloitte, which is the new company that's going to determine whether or not an NIL pass muster, they're going to say it doesn't. 70, 80% of the time, they've already stated so. And this College Football Commission, it's being headed up by Brian Seeley out of the major leagues, they're going to shoot all that down. And then they're going to get sued and sued and sued. And Tennessee, with Danny White and Donde Plowman, has already stated the reality. You're going to have to collect a bargain at some point.
I'll say it. We got a camera on us. I don't really care at this point. Collective bargaining is the only issue. It's the only solution.
It's the only way we're going to get there.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So they're mad about that. They're mad that Tennessee has a state law that allows them to go around this stuff that breaks the law. They're mad about that. And you're going to see article after article over and over about Tennessee being a big problem for this House settlement. Instead of just looking at the fact the House settlement is the problem. Charlie Baker, who was the NCAA president, came out a day or two ago and pretty much stated the fact that, look, we had to do this. We were going to go bankrupt because we've been breaking the law for years. And because the NCAA refused to do pay for play, they did this stupid NIL thing and put the cart before the horse. Now you've got these giant NIL companies that are out here passing out money, 20 million, 25, well, hell. This is what was passed out for football last year. 23 million, 22 million for Texas, 20 million, 20 million, 20 million, all down through here. And it's going up this year. So that's not revenue sharing. There's going to be 20.5 for revenue sharing. The NIL's in addition to that. So you've got Texas going to get 40. You're going to Ohio State 30-something, Tennessee 30-something. And then all of a sudden next year in 2026, it's going to go to 20.5 plus a little speck here and there of NIL. They created an NIL monster that is not going to go away. It's just a fact. All these companies exist and all this money's there and it's all set up through a funnel because everybody gives money. It's not going to go away. So we're going to have lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and they're going to try to blame Tennessee for this, which is ridiculous. Tennessee is the canary in the coal mine. They're telling you this won't work. And they've been telling you for a couple of years now, and the NCAA didn't have any choice. They had a sword against their neck. But the reporters do. They know this isn't going to work, but they're going to pretend that Tennessee's the bad guy. So for all the Tennessee fans out there, just get used to this. You're going to get hammered over and over in the national media why you're the problem. It's not the House settlement that's the problem. You're the problem. Tennessee, if Tennessee would just go along, none of this would be a problem. But we're going to blow it up somehow. No, it's going to get blown up because it's flawed. It's fundamentally flawed and will not work. Just that simple. So you can blame Tennessee all you want. All they are is the canary in the coal mine. They're warning you this won't work. You've been told by Danny White, Donde Plowman, and the Attorney General at Tennessee, Scarametti, this will not work. So go ahead, blame, 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 blame. But for all the Tennessee fans out there, know this is coming and know where it's coming from. It's an unwillingness to accept that this House settlement is flawed. They don't want to hear it. They want no, all this kind of crap.
You can't triple stamp a double stamp. You can't triple stamp a double stamp, Lloyd. You can't triple stamp a double stamp. Lloyd.
But guess what? I'm going to keep bringing the noise because I'm sick of this crap. I've been telling y'all for a couple of years. I told you when the whole NCAA went after Tennessee that the NCAA was going to get their butt kicked. And I told you and told you. And I was like, oh, do you not? I said, I read the Alston case.
I drink your milkshake.
Anyway, if you like this content, I'll try to calm down. If you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you have not subscribed, boom, 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 hit that little button if you can handle it. Hit that little button right there because I bring it. And right over here's the most recent video. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. We'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay, and I'll try to calm down.
Congratulations, you played yourself.